One team beat Italy, one of football's greatest nations, on foreign soil. Then they vanished from world football for almost 50 years. It's the 19th of July, 1966. Middlesbrough, England. North Korea, a team nobody outside their own country had ever heard of, walks onto the pitch against Italy, four-time World Cup contenders. 90 minutes later, North Korea wins 1-0. It remains one of the biggest upsets in World Cup history. But here's the part almost nobody knows. There is a second twist to this story, something that happened years later that most football fans have never even heard about. We're getting to it. But if you're new here, hit subscribe now, because we drop a new country's World Cup story every single week, and you don't want to miss where this one ends up. 25 million people, one of the most isolated countries on the planet. In 1966, North Korea wasn't just an underdog, they were a total mystery. Nobody had footage of their players before that tournament. Nobody knew their tactics. Scouts from other nations couldn't even get access to watch them train. They arrived in England as ghosts and left as legends. Let's go further. In the quarter-final, North Korea faces Portugal, led by Eusebio, one of the greatest players who ever lived. North Korea scores 3 goals in the first 25 minutes. 3-0. The football world is in complete shock. A team nobody had heard of 3 weeks earlier is on the verge of a World Cup semifinal. Then, Eusebio happens. 4 goals from him alone in one half of football. Portugal comes back to win 5-3. North Korea's dream ends in the quarterfinal. The furthest any Asian nation had gone in a World Cup at that point. A record that stood untouched for decades. Right now North Korea sits around 110th in the FIFA World Rankings. Lower than nations like Grenada and Montserrat, tiny islands most people couldn't find on a map. To put that in perspective, that's a team that once beat Italy, now ranked below countries with fewer people than a single football stadium. So what happened after 1966? Some say the political system limited any future international exposure for the players. Some say football funding was redirected elsewhere for decades. Some say the team itself was simply never allowed to build on that moment, and the story quietly disappeared from world football history. For almost half a century, here's the twist we promised. Their next World Cup appearance wasn't until 2010, 44 years later. In their opening game, they lost narrowly to Brazil. But then, something strange happened. They lost their next match 7-0 to Portugal. Their heaviest defeat in tournament history. They scored only once in the entire tournament, against Ivory Coast, in a 3-0 loss. The gap between their 2 World Cup stories couldn't be more extreme. And the twist doesn't stop there. Reports emerged afterward, claiming the players faced serious consequences back home for the embarrassing result. Though North Korea's government never confirmed this publicly, whether true or exaggerated. It shows how differently football is treated in a country this isolated from the rest of the world. But let's have some fun. What if North Korea somehow qualified again for the 2026 World Cup? Picture this. A team almost nobody has footage of, almost nobody has scouted, walking into a stadium in America, the same way they walked into Middlesbrough in 1966. Now imagine North Korea facing a modern football giant, like Germany or Argentina in the group stage. Nobody expects anything. Minute 60, they score. The commentators go silent for a second. The same silence that filled Middlesbrough almost 60 years ago. There would be no sponsors flooding in. No big money deals. This isn't that kind of story. But one result like that would remind the entire football world that the biggest shock in World Cup history already happened once, and it came from the most unexpected place on earth.
North Korea has already shocked the world once. Nobody knows if they will ever get the chance to do it again.
So, do you think a team like North Korea could ever pull off a shock like that in today's World Cup? Drop your answer below. And if this is the first time you're hearing this story, make sure you're subscribed. Because next week, we uncover another country's World Cup secret nobody talks about.